I've already had a list for the champions I deem the most broken, the most gimped, and the most doomed balance-wise. But what about the champions that are a combination of all three? These are the champions who will probably never be properly balanced, are nightmares to fix, numerous attempts at fixing them already, and are simply fundamentally flawed. These are the champions that are simply impossible to balance. Before any of you say, but Stonewall, X-Champion is currently balanced/weak right now. That's not how this works, or how balance works in general. Like the broken champions, these, and pretty much every champion in the game, can have their viability shift at a moment's notice. The problem is that these champions have proven to be such balance headaches for Riot, and have dramatic swings of power with any attempts to make them fair and balanced. While broken champions have balance issues caused by their kits having a combination of too many factors like Aurelia, or having too few factors like Zin's, the champions on this list tend to either have a problem due to having portions of their kit be beyond what the game can handle, or they have such a shitty base to work with that Riot can't build upon them properly. This video is also a continuation of a discussion I had on stream. I tend to go on rants and talk about balance when players ask me these sorts of questions, so a lot of what will be brought up was discussed between fans and myself. First one on the list is Evelynn. I already had her in the previous list, but not only is she gimped, but Riot has no idea what to do with her. She's been every kind of champion at this point. She's been a laner and a jungler, she's been AD, AP, tanky bruiser, on hit, and so on. She even had this burning syphilis build at one point. Riot just keeps nerfing one thing and buffing another, but ultimately taking a dump on her at some point and then being forced to attempt to fix her again after public outcry gets too big. She's abused so many items and spells that she's either been nerfed because of how she abused those things or caused those things to be nerfed. She was nerfed way back in meta because Revive Evelynn was super cheesy and broken for solo queue. She's been nerfed because she's abusing Spirit of the Lizard Elder, and was even nerfed because she abused Runeglaive. You can easily predict that she's bound to receive more changes in the future, either because she can't jungle and they have to patch her up to do it properly, or because she's going nuts again and they have to shatter her kneecaps again. The thing is, there is nothing Riot can do about Evelynn. There is no way you can balance stealth like hers if it's attached to a champion with Master Yi-like damage. Even worse, I believe it's basically impossible to come up with a rework for a champion like her that would be balanced and preserve what makes her Evelynn in the first place. Next one up is Kassadin. Do I have to really say anything about him? His ultimate is either trash or it isn't, and if it isn't, then he utterly dominates games. He's been through so many changes and none of them have fully stuck. He's currently in this limbo in that the players who are good at him can still break him, but he has enough issues that most basic players fumble playing him. He started off with the intention of being this auto-attacking anti-mage champion of some kind that turned out to have awesome base values, so he was used as a mage instead. There's quite a bit of irony in that. Instead of being this guy that blinks in and stabs people to death, he became a mage that simply waits so he can burst you down and then hunts you down when you try to run away. His basic abilities are so vanilla and unimpressive that their status is elevated because of how flexible and insane his ultimate can be. It basically means his basic abilities can never be more than generic due to how powerful his ultimate is. It was mobility creep before mobility creep even was a problem. In earlier seasons, there wasn't anyone as mobile as Kassadin, and even though mobility has increased, his ultimate still allows him to outpace a lot of champions. Kassadin is defined by his blink, and I can't imagine any way this can ever find a middle ground where it isn't considered too strong or too weak. Basically, any rework Riot gives him will have to preserve that low cooldown blink, which will painfully limit design space. Kayle is the next one of the few remaining quote-unquote hybrids. She's caused so many balance issues because Riot attempts to keep this factor about her to please the fans. Like Evelynn, she's been an AD, an AP, and an on-hit champion. Beyond what Evelynn has been, Kayle has also been used as a top laner, a mid laner, a support, a jungler, and even as a ranged marksman. Riot ends up changing her role whenever they add something to the game or they nerf her. The problem is that Kayle is usually extreme whenever she becomes relevant. Her fire sword and her ultimate are just balanced nightmares. Her ultimate goes without saying, as it's a 100% damage nullifier on a teammate. It has constantly had its range changed, cost changed, cooldowns changed, and its duration changed as well. It's such an absolute spell that has no workaround beyond catching Kayle off guard and killing her before she squeezes it out. Something like this may potentially be fine on a champion with no offensive power, but as we know, Kale can become a lot more that tears her enemies to pieces. Her fire sword is basically where all her power is located, ignoring her ultimate. Her fire sword is either able to reach a point where she slaughters everyone during its duration, or she just doesn't do anything. She's balanced around the fact that her only true offensive power comes from auto-attacking while this is active, which makes her pathetically weak without it, but potentially stupidly strong when it's turned on. When is the last time you've had fun playing against a Kale? It's never really a fun experience because her entire game plan revolves around tagging you with Q and then just torching you down with a sword, and then blocking any retaliation with her ultimate. The sad part is that she has some glaring weaknesses such as being relatively squishy without her ultimate, having some super clunky combat patterns due to her cooldowns, and a huge weakness to silence and debuffs. The problem is that as exploitable as her weaknesses are, her strengths are so extreme that it simply doesn't matter in some games. Alright, rise up for Rise, cause he's next. If you've been playing since beta, you know Rise is just a clusterfuck of a champion. Every change to Rise has presented a brand new problem, and he's gone from trash to god, back to trash almost instantly with every change. He started off as this mage that basically exploded an entire team with his bouncing ultimate that was changed into a mage short range burst combo assassin, then given a supercharge to help him do this better. Riot tried messing with his range several times and realized giving him any range as this burst combo assassin was stupid. They decided to make him into this machine gun mage with the intention of him being someone who could spam his Q as if it was like an alternative auto attack of some sort. Turns out he became a tank mage and was a nightmare to deal with as he'd fuck your shit up and he would be hard to kill. After tons of balance changes, Rise is now an altered version of the machine gun form with more reliance on AP rather than just strictly mana in an attempt to make him a bit less tanky, and now his Q is also a skill shot. Unfortunately, this also made him obscene from the get-go, and Riot was forced to break his legs again to keep him from going haywire once more. Some players are still able to make this champion work for them and completely ruin games, but the point still stands. Riot has not had a good track record with Rise. At this point, I honestly don't know what Riot wants Rise to be. Riot tries to preserve the feel of Rise, but honestly it only opens up more problems for this champion. I just think a super spammy mage with lockdown that can be refreshed constantly can't work. Last but not least, Soraka. Hell, even right this moment, people are calling for her to get nerfed again. She simply has such a troubled history and has had 2 reworks, 4 if you consider ability reworks their own things, and tons of rebalances. She's a healing machine that either heals too much and nullifies your damage entirely, making your experience dull and painful, or heals for little and is pretty much a dead spot in your team composition. She used to be a massive issue because she could heal while also tearing a team apart with her other abilities, but with her rework, all her power is basically focused on her healing now. Therein lies an entirely new issue. Her healing has nearly no drawbacks. Yes, it can nearly kill her when she uses it, but the trade-off is so lopsided it is negligible. She can machine gun heal her teammates and not fail to do so unless she's actually killed. Most every other heal in the game at this point has either a drawback or a trade-off. Bard's heal is delayed and can be cancelled altogether by his opponents. Nami has to decide to use hers as extra damage or extra healing. Sona's doesn't have much control over hers, and Tarek has a crippling cooldown with a conditional reduction that puts him at risk. Meanwhile, Soraka can literally just stand behind some fatty and safely spam her spells, nullifying most forms of aggression and bringing fights to a standstill. While yes, technically the enemy is a person down offensively, Soraka's defensive contribution, when she's strong, far exceeds what most defensive champions would have contributed towards offense, at least comparatively. As already said, when her heals are even remotely strong, she's oppressive. There has simply never been a middle ground for her. Some games rely on a team's ability to kill Soraka, and still have enough power to finish off the rest of the team. Not all compositions can achieve this, and it has become worse with the changes to Grievous Wounds. I personally like playing Soraka and have for a long time, so I personally know just how dramatic her power levels have been, and let me tell you, they've never ever been moderate. Either way, if you enjoyed this discussion list, then leave a comment below with your opinions and thoughts. Let me know if you agree or if you feel a different champion deserves to be on this list as well. This channel is supported by my sponsors, Crunchyroll, Pro Build Systems, and Loot Crate. Check out the description below for links to the websites. Signing up for any trials, including Crunchyroll's free anime trial, greatly supports my channel. Also remember to give the video a like to support the channel and subscribe if you haven't yet.